Patience, this is the final piece of the evening, and it is titled FMDACMFITH, which is an acronym.
Ooh.
And,
For what?
wow,
This
this shall be revealed throughout the piece.
Try and work it out yourself while it's all happening.
Yeah. This piece also features music from the wonderful Arthur Bauer.
Great.
Yeah, on the piano accordion.
Squeezing it.
Thank you, both of you.
Take it out. Boom, boom, ain't it great to be crazy? Boom, boom, ain't it great to be crazy? Giddy and foolish all day long. Boom, boom, ain't it great to be crazy? A horse and three blind mice stood on the corner shooting dice. The horse he slipped and fell on the flea. Oh, said the flea, there's a horse on me. Boom, boom, ain't it great to be? I entertain at Martin's age. I love it. I sing songs with CDs, I dance around, and I have lots of things to play with, like long scarves and accessories like this one. Now I entertained also in another place, Philip Kennedy, for 6 years, and that was 6 years ago. And I had a great time. And one day, at Philip Kennedy, when I was entertaining the people, they were all sitting in lovely comfy chairs, and I was dancing around using my monkeys. I'm a little monkey, yay! He's a good little monkey. His name is Bob. And I've got another monkey too, and he's also called Bob. So 2 Bobs. So I'm entertaining Mr. Bob, and in walks this large woman with a walker just behind the comfy chairs, and suddenly she screams, "They're mine!" And she reaches across and almost grabs my monkey. So I took them both under the arm and rush and start running along the corridor, and she's chasing me. And just when I get to this other place, she almost catches me. But a carer catches her just in time. Very lucky. So I rush back to the kitchen, gather all my gear, and think I've got to leave, because it was very scary. But I wait in the kitchen, I see the carer bring her back into her room, which is directly opposite from the kitchen. He sits her down in a chair, a comfy chair, and gives her a pink cardigan. And I wait until she's nice and relaxed again, and then I go away, back to my place. And then, about a year later, something like that, about a year later, I was dancing about at a concert there, and one of the carers rushed up to me and said, "Jenn, that lady is very, very ill. Would you like to visit her in her room?" So I went to her room, and I sat on her bed, and I put my hand under the covers and held her hand, and I said lots and lots of lovely, lovely, nice things to her. And then she squeezed my hand, which was gorgeous. And she died about 6 hours later, apparently. Wow. Now, when I was asked to do a mime on aging, my first influence was, of course, Marcel Marceau, because he does all these amazing things, wow, etc., etc. So it was a huge influence. That was for the first part. For the second part, I got lovely influence from the people, lots of the people in the Philip Kennedy. And the first influences was this lady, and she was very long and skinny, and she was lying on one of those couch bed things that they push about the place. Anyway, so I started doing my waving hands to her, and she responded exactly the same, with her lovely long skinny hands and incredibly long fingers. Wow! So that was that one. And then, the next influence was Marjorie. Now Marjorie used to carry her bag around with her all the time. Now I have to carry my bag around with me all the time because you never know when he's going to fly away, and I have to buy some milk and bread. So that's why I've got it with me all the time. She was, of course, speaking about her deceased husband, who was a pilot. And then there was Vera. And Vera was a tiny Italian lady, and she used to, when I came past her singing, she used to sing as well, and she'd go right into the Italian opera. And then the tears would start to pour down her face. And she, every song, she'd do exactly the same thing. But it was amazing. She was happy and then really, really sad. Wonderful lady. And of course, the lady who had the dog was an Egyptian lady. And she couldn't speak any English. But she used to sit there and hold her doll. And then I'd touch her on the shoulder. And then she'd point to her doll and say, Nonna. Because she was the nonna of the doll. Which is just gorgeous. It was really lovely. I came to live in Alberton 5 years ago, and I live in a lovely old, really old cottage with a lovely veranda, beautiful view. I rent. My first routine inspection, which you get every 3 months, was freaking fantastic. In walks this woman wearing stereo heels, stamp, 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 and she stops right in front of my room. And she looks to the other side of the room, about 2.5 to 3 meters away, and she says, "Oh, there's a mark there!" So, tiny mark. And I said, "Oh, so that was where I threw my shoes." I was a bit pissed off or something. Oh. Next time, she comes in, stamp, 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 and she's on my veranda. And she looks right down the other end of the veranda, and she says, "Oh, there's a spider web there!" Literally this wide. So I just stopped being present when she comes for her routine inspections, but she still likes to complain every now and again. That's so fantastic. And the rent, of course, in these times, yeah, we put the rent up, because we're greedy, that's why. But it's gone up $80 a week in the last 2 years. Wow, that is so, so cool. Apart from that, I really love living in Alberton. And it's what? Here in these rooms, have the pier, which translates to, also in this neighbourhood we've got the pier. Gosh, up here. Ongelooflijk, verrukkelijk, niet te geloven. Leuk hè? Maar ook lekker, which means nice. Lekker is veel tekst. Now, before I came to Alberton, I lived 16.5 years in a flat on 97 Esplanade, opposite the sea, and I had the ground floor. Our front room, big front room, the room at the front was huge, and it was a window that went from the ground almost up to the ceiling, all the way along, and even the door was a window. So the view was fantastic. I could look out to the sea every day. It was so cool. And the front room was big enough so that I could dance, do lots of writing, create lots of work, lots of acting, blah, blah, blah. The only trouble was, the fact was, it was 8 flats on top of each other. and the entrance hall, one entrance hall for 6 of the 8 flats. So of course, every once in a while, there were hassles. Wonderful little house. The very first one happened about 2 weeks after I moved in. It was a drunk upstairs neighbour. She punched me in the face. And a couple of years after that, there were 2 different ladies. One living down there with her little boy, and one living up there with her little girl, and the kids got together and they had fun. They tipped over rubbish bins, they threw all the letters out from places, they put doggy poo on my mat, they grabbed curtain poles and tried to pretend that there were crutches in the lawn, so making big holes in the lawn. That was frigging fantastic. And then one night, apparently it was about 3 a.m. in the morning, because the person from upstairs there saw them, the 2 women destroyed half of my beautiful verge garden. And I got a prize for my verge garden, which is terrible, you know. Goodness me, destroy the verge garden. But the weird thing was that when I was asked to leave, oh, I forgot about the last woman. The last woman was a very young woman living diagonally opposite me, and she was on methamphetamine, which was so cool. And one day, I was out the front, picking weeds up in the lawn, and her boyfriend managed to get in through the screen door, walk down the long hallway into my living room, find my bag, open it up, take out my wallet, and walk off. That was so cool. So as I said, even when I was asked to leave, I didn't want to, because you never want to leave the beach, and that gorgeous undulating sea. But then I was lucky I came here to Alberton. Super. Up and down, round and round, I've been going. Now let's go back to 1975. I was living in Surrey, England. And I woke up one morning and thought, oh, I have to go to London and I have to go to Australia House. It's very important, I've got to do it. And so, like Dick Whittington, I went to London. And the upshot was that several months later I ended up coming to Amsterdam, ostensibly to stay for 1 week. And I took my very first, the next morning after I arrived, I took my very first dance lesson with Eddie to be. Oh, it was like an electric light bulb switched on, and there I was, dancing, creating stuff like never before. Oh, lovely. Now the very first place I stayed was a youth hotel, which it was in the edge of the red light district, and it used to be Gestapo headquarters during the war, apparently. I slept in a room with 19 people, so it was all 20 of us, double bunks. And then, a month later, oh, and I also, besides going to dance lessons every day, I did the cleaning. I got up very early to do the cleaning there, and I did the shopping for them all through the red light district. It was great fun. And luckily, a month later, I got a place in the warehouse opposite. And I actually had my own room, except that the rooms, of course, were separated with cardboard. So I slept on 4 mattresses on top of each other, and sleeping bags, and more stuff, you know, to keep warm, because it was very cold in February in Amsterdam. And then, I think it was a month later after that, I got my very first own room at the top of a building, a tiny room that was 1.5 by 2 metres. It was great though. This is mine. On the Marnix side, opposite the infamous multimedia centre called the Manders, which is a perfect place. I started teaching dance there. And I went and took a shower there once a week because we shared a kitchen and a kitchen and a toilet in the house. So for each floor there was a kitchen and toilet we shared. And to shower you had to go elsewhere. So I used to go to the Meltdown where I was teaching dance. It was a very grungy place, but the shower head was huge and the water was like really warm. So once a week it was the best in the world. Now, after 1.5 years there, I moved to the floor below, and I had 2 rooms. And we were fine for the house. And first of all, it was on the top floor. Now, unfortunately, there was a man living there called Vuck, and for some reason or other, he didn't like me. And so, every time I went up and answered the phone, if it was for me, he would turn the radio on in Joseph's room very loud. So I couldn't hear myself. So I said to Joseph, look, what am I going to do? Every time I go up there, Buck does that. And Joseph said, listen, you just got to stand up to me. Stand up for yourself. Really stand up. But really, really, really stand up. Really? Yeah. Okay. So the next time, phone, knock, Vart, could you please turn the radio off? No, Vart, please. Then he walks out and says, I'm not going to turn the radio off. Okay, I've got to be strong. So I slapped him very lamely across his face. And what does he do? Pop my floor. But of course, what I do in reaction, because I'm going to be clever, is I got an amazing karate kick in his groin. And then a triple backflip for that woman there. If only that was true. You know, she's punching me, and I'm ending up back at the old room, and right by the stairs, and go down there. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Stop. So help! And suddenly, from downstairs, 2 floors below, rushed up Henny and Jacques in their dressing gowns, and they saved me. Oh, so lucky! I was writing stories, I ran a children's theatre, and I met a delightful Swedish scallywag who was actually the only boyfriend I've ever had who actually really, really admired my work artistically. Unfortunately, at a certain point, he had to go back to Sweden to finish off his prison sentence for celebration. Kumla is a maximum security prison. But of course you maybe know by now that in Sweden and Norway they treat inmates much better than they do over here in England. And they also used to treat us foreign girlfriends really, really well, because we had a room with a lock on our side. We had a table and chairs. We had a lovely bed couch to relax on from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 5 days. Now, a friend of mine said to me, "Do you know what, Jen? The guy who runs the prison, who's like the warden of the prison, he's really, really into dance and theatre, you name it, he just loves it. So, if you go and talk to him, it'll probably make the sentence of your boyfriend a bit less." And so one day I did. I sat down and talked with him, and he told me all the different things that he was doing with the theatre within the prison. And I told him the stuff that I was doing. It was great fun, we had a great chat. But towards the end of the chat, he said to me, "Do you know what, Jen? There are some very naughty girlfriends that come here to visit their naughty boyfriends. They bring along drugs and give it to their naughty boyfriends." And I said, "Oh, that is just shocking, absolutely shocking." And on my back was my bag, and inside my bag was a lovely little present which I brought along for my boyfriend. And those were the days, my friend. We thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance forever and a day. We'd live the life we choose. We'd fight and never lose. For we were young and sure to have our way. That horrifying experience that I had happened to me only just over 3 months after I returned to Australia to live. But the really weird thing is that my attacker handed himself up to the cops just over 3 hours after he attacked me. Phew, I went, wow, talk about being lucky. Whoa! You know, of course, naturally, my greatest impulse after that was I need to do as much clowning around with kids as possible because it's fun and silly and I love to be silly and I'm a lucky girl. And so I did. Lots and lots of workshops and you name it, blah, blah, blah. And then several years, towards after about 13 or so years, the relief teaching was drying up a bit, so I decided to do relief teaching at Adelaide West. Now that's where they have heaps of disabled kids, mostly physically disabled, but really physically disabled. I loved to be there. It was a very boring long day, but there were gorgeous silly moments of making the kids happy, and they were very happy. It was great fun. It was the SSOs, the student support officers, that used to do all the instruments of pulling over lifting them up and putting them onto the bed from the couch, etc., etc., etc. And we didn't have to do that. But one day, after about 2 years, it was in my second year, this young new SSO raced in and she said, "Jen, I'm late. I am really, really late. So could you please put this little boy into his chair?" I thought, oh, okay. So he was hanging from something and his hands were around something else there. And so what I had to do was undo these straps very slowly, but I didn't undo them a bit too fast. And the little boy fell to the ground quite fast. But he was smiling like crazy, so I picked him up and I put him into this special chair, and I got the 2 lots of straps and did them up perfectly well, and he was very happy. But there was a problem. There was a screw loose on the back of the chair already, and so his skin was also very delicately hurt, just very delicately, not much. And guess what? I was sacked from my job. Shocking. My last story was inspired by Josh, who works at the fair. One day I was in the fair and I saw on his arm his mallard duck, which he's now going to show you so you can see it.
It's a duck. A mallard duck. It's a male mallard.
A male mallard duck.
How do you jump? Oh.
I think they can be friendly as well, but
They can kick too.
And that gave me a hint for my last story. Oh, of course I know what I'll talk about. I'll talk about when I was 12 years old at my classical ballet school and I played the duck in People in the Wolf. I was 12 and it was other seniors, all aged 17 and over, that played the other roles. Now, Prokofiev was decided to create a special thing so that he could introduce kids to the members of things in the orchestra. And so he created a story about Peter and the Wolf. And then they made a ballet of it. And at my ballet school, they did the ballet of Peter and the Wolf. Now, pretend this is the stage. Here in this corner is a lovely big tree, and into that tree goes both the cat and the bird. Peter comes in later, and of course there's the wolf that comes in, and there's his grandfather. And for the duck, they made this pond. And that's it. Now, the duck waddles in the story and gets into the pond and kneels down and is in the pond. Probably for about 15 minutes. And then it's my turn as the duck to get up. So I get up and the audience cracks up laughing. This is the first night. I'm thinking, what? I look down and the blue paint in the pond has covered all the tracks at the front. Oh God, it's not very nice for us. Second night, I'm on my toe shoes, I'm moving backwards. And my toe shoes bang into the pond and bits of the pond go flying all over the place. But the third night was the best one. The third night. Now you know, of course, that the wolf grabs the duck and eats the duck whole. So here we go. The wolf grabs me in his arms and he's turning me around and I'm waving my arms like and my legs like this. And I think on that particular night I must have closed my eyes because the music comes and it goes boom and there's a blackout. And I rush off stage. But this is the third night and I kind of couldn't really find where I was supposed to be going. And when the lights came on, I had my hand on a bald man's head. Oh, you're telling me now. FMDACM.
Fifth.
FMD.
ACM.
Fifth. Boom boom.
Ain't it great to be crazy?
Boom boom.
Ain't it great to be
Crazy.
Giddy and foolish all day long.
Boom boom.
Ain't it great to be
Crazy.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And Chloe.